Good evening and welcome to Face to Face. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Niresh Elyatambi. This morning, the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka delivered a landmark judgment in the fundamental rights actions regarding the Express Pearl disaster of 2021. The court ordered an initial payment of compensation of $1 billion, which may be the largest ever compensation in Sri Lankan history up to now. And to discuss this, I have with me one of the petitioners in this case, Dr. Ajantha Perera, the noted activist of the environment, human rights, and virtually every other thing. Now, welcome, Dr. Ajantha, and you are beaming from year to year after this judgment.
Yes.
So, how do you feel with this win?
Well, you see, it is a historic judgment because so far what Sri Lanka has received as compensation of a marine pollution is only 2 million USD. And
Which is a pittance.
yeah, it's just nothing actually compared to the damage that it has caused. So this is a tremendous amount, and I firmly believe it's a very wise decision, because if you bring into the country, say, about 3-4 billion, and you need to also fight for that 3-4 billion, and then eventually people would think, okay, they'll be satisfied that they have got this much of a money. But the actual compensation itself is far higher. What we've calculated, MIPA calculated something like 6.4 billion.
The
And
damage that
as
had
a
been
compensation, and my calculation went over 50 billion. So basically, the amounts, the eventual amounts, the targets are far higher. And therefore, the Supreme Court judgment that was given is a very wise decision, because they have only asked for 1 billion USD, which means that the government has to now start doing the investigations, which they have not done. Not only this government, even the government before, they have not done the investigations that were so necessary. Because if you really look at the area where the actual accident happened, there were lots of coral reefs, and there were seagrass beds, turtles living there, and all of them were damaged. But up to now, we have not investigated. We took the initial sampling, like, for example, Nara did that, MIPA may have, but then they put a full stop to the whole thing. But we need to know now how much is the damage, to what extent is that environment ruined. And so, with the 1 billion, what we are hoping to do is basically do the investigations. And as we find more and more data, but it needs to be international standard data, we can't just give any data. We need to actually do the experiments and find out through the investigations how far the damage is, and then we can ask for more compensation. So, in order to do that, there is also a compensation committee, or something like a council has been set up. And this is the directive of the Supreme Court now, a commission to be set up, which will look into the compensation pattern. And then, even no matter who's going to do all the testing, it has to be reported to the Supreme Court. And in the Supreme Court, there is the opportunity for people like us to argue and say whether it's going in the right direction, whether there are any errors in it. Through that way, we ensure that it is up to the international standards. We cannot just be lazy. We have been utterly lazy for the last 4 years. We have not done any investigations. And in fact, the turtle carcasses are remaining still in the fridges. And the plastic pellets are still lying around. And water samples are still there. Nothing has been investigated. So I am very happy about that judgment, because the harder we work, the better we work, the more precise data we collect, we can ask for more compensation. And that's what a country should be moving forwards to. We need to learn how to do a thorough job of it.
How to protect our own country, how to be a little bit patriotic and fight for our country. Yes, and to give our viewers a little bit of a synopsis of this judgment, it is in fact a 361-page judgment, and I'm afraid I haven't had time to read all 361 pages, but there was a shorter synopsis, which is this in my hand. It's a 5-judge bench headed by Chief Justice Murdu Fernando herself, and in fact she is retiring, I believe, tomorrow. And so this is a very fitting judgment on her part, and it was a unanimous judgment by the 5 judges. The others were Justice Ajantha Perera, Justice Shiran Gunaratna, Justice Achala Vengapulli, and Justice K. Priyantha Fernando. So a marvelous judgment. And remember, this is the Supreme Court, so you can't go higher. You can't appeal higher than our Supreme Court. Right. And of course, this FR action was instituted by a number of parties, including, of course, the lady who's seated right here. Just to give a few more details, this is initial compensation, which means, as Dr. Ajantha just explained, that the actual amount could increase in a big way. This compensation is just the initial payment, and this $1 billion is to be paid within the next 1 year, and an installment plan has been drafted by the Supreme Court itself. The first installment is due in just under 2 months' time, in September. So that's good news for, I'm sure, the central bank as well, because they don't have to worry too much about the Sri Lankan rupee, because we're going to have a lot of forex coming in, hopefully. Right. And again, to refresh the memories of our viewers, the Express Pearl was a ship which arrived on the 25th of May, 2021.
20th of May.
And it was ablaze. There was
20th of May it came, and then 25th.
25th it caught fire, I believe, and it was anchored off Pamanugama, and then finally it sank, I believe, about a week later.
Yeah.
And the court has in fact described this disaster very well, and it has said that this is the largest ever spill of plastics into the ocean in the world, and this is also the largest recorded marine disaster in the Indian Ocean. So very strong words indeed, but realistic ones from the court. And of course, the compensation has to be paid by the master, the operator, and the local agent of the ship Express Pearl.
Yes.
And it is, of course, it was a Singapore flagged vessel. Now, interestingly, Dr. Ajantha, the Supreme Court has given some very harsh words towards the Attorney General, the State Minister of Environment, and at the time, of course, not the present one, and also the Marine Environment Protection Authority, MIPA, and its chairperson at the time. So the court has reached out and found fault with these state institutions and these state actors,
Yes.
and found that they had been negligent in their duties.
Exactly.
And interestingly, the court has, apart from ordering a fresh CID investigation, has also referred this to the Bribery Commission
Yes.
to look into whether there was any bribery involved.
Yeah,
obviously.
there was a situation, I don't know whether you would remember, the minister Vijayadasa Rajapaksa said in the parliament that there was 500 million USD lying in a bank in London. Actually, he said Lloyd's Bank, and he gave the name of the person to whose account this has been given, and the bank, even the account number. And then he challenged, for the people to go and find it. So eventually, nothing happened. And I remember myself, and I quoted that, and I said that the CID needs to look into that. And CID called me for investigation. And they kept me, they were asking me questions for 5 hours, 5 long hours. And I said everything that I knew about it, basically regarding the Express Pearl disaster and how Mr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa spoke on it. And we need to really investigate and get that 500 million USD to ourselves. But unfortunately, nothing got done. And it's still there. I mean, and Mr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa mentioned this twice. And I still remember I went to a consultative committee meeting on Express Pearl to the parliament, and even there he was mentioning about it. So this needs to be investigated, because if we have money lying in a bank, in Lloyd's Bank, which really belongs to us, I mean, we need to go get it. Because we need, not only because we need that money, but that's our duty. That's our duty. If our country has some money there and unused, it's time that we need to go and get that money or get it transferred to us.
In fact, the Supreme Court judgment specifically refers to certain statements made in Parliament and has asked the CID to look into that.
Yeah.
Yes. But let's look at some of the state actors who have been faulted here. The Attorney General, and I'm reading from this synopsis, the Attorney General has failed to perform his statutory function of indicting the owner and operator of MV Express Pearl with regard to their criminal responsibility. And it further states that the decision taken by the Attorney General to institute civil legal action in a Singapore court, as opposed to instituting action in the High Court of the Republic of Sri Lanka, was an unreasonable, irrational and arbitrary decision, and was not in the best interests of Sri Lanka.
Exactly.
So rap on the knuckles for the AG's department.
That was very wrong. I mean, we said that. We said that right from the beginning. They spent, I think, 10 million USD. They even got a company, a lawyer's firm from Australia to actually do this work. And when they went to Singapore with this case, one of the things that they said was that we would not be able to know exactly what is being discussed. And so we are petitioners here in Sri Lanka, and we are unable to know exactly how the case is proceeding in Singapore. And this was ridiculous. So we were arguing all the time and wanting to know exactly what's happening there, and they never told us about it. And also that decision was wrong, because the evidence is here in Sri Lanka, the scientists are here in Sri Lanka, the data is being stored and being looked into here in Sri Lanka. And I do not know for 1 second, when we have superb lawyers and judges in Sri Lanka, why we go all the way to Singapore, because it is a Singaporean flagged ship.
Yes, so but that doesn't matter, does it? It is not who commits the offense, but it is the jurisdiction which the offense was committed in.
Exactly.
And here the Supreme Court has very clearly stated that action should have been instituted in the High Court of Sri Lanka.
Exactly.
Which means the Supreme Court appears to be of the opinion that Sri Lanka and Sri Lankan courts have jurisdiction.
Do you know that up to now, up to today, when the judgment came, we do not know exactly what's happening in Singapore. None of us know about it. None of us were told about it. And then we also have a delimitation. As far as I have heard, there is a delimitation case also running in Singapore and a delimitation case also in UK. And so we are, one of the good things about the delimitation factor is that it does not apply for environment. Environmental damage cannot be limited because environmental damage is looked into as a short term, long term, and therefore you cannot say there is a limit on how much compensation would be paid for an environmental damage. And therefore, even though they put down certain limitations on the compensation which could be paid, whether in Singapore or whether by UK, it would not apply for environmental disasters and environmental damages, and therefore our compensation can proceed.
Right. I think the difference here, and I'm not absolutely positive on this, but it is a matter of whether it is a shipping matter or an environmental disaster. So in shipping, I think there are certain limitations, insurers and so on. But when it comes to destroying the environment, well, whatever you've destroyed, you have to compensate for.
Exactly.
And in fact, the court has actually referred to a particular legal principle on that as well.
Exactly.
So it's a very decisive judgment. And now, what next, Dr. Ajantha?
Yeah, so it's a matter of now. See, the money would come to the Secretary Finance. I believe it will be coming to Secretary Treasury. The money will be given to, but the work will have to be done by the Ministry of Environment. Now, the Ministry of Environment needs to have a particular strategy and a particular, a methodology already in place for them to do this work. We need to test water, we need to test for sediments, we need to test for the animals, we need to test for the whole habitat. Now, this cannot be done that easily because we are dealing with the marine environment. It's very difficult for people to spend a lot of time in this inside, deep in the sea. And the damage is actually being happening right now in the seabed. Because if you look at it, there are 1,486 containers which are lying in the seabed. And among them, 81 containers contain toxic material. So it's not a matter of somebody actually going there, just taking a sample, and you cannot give your result based on 1, 2, 3, 4 samples. There are systematic methods, right, for testing, and they need to be very precise in their sampling. And we need to know what we are going to collect with each time we dive, because you cannot just say, I've taken it from this particular area, I've taken it from that area, because the seabed is constantly turbulent, is changing. The species are changing. Already it has changed a lot, because when the toxic chemicals hit the seawater and it goes down into the seabed, the animals which were living in that environment would have died. By now, corals would have died. By now, the turtles would have migrated. And also, we know many of the beaches where the turtles were laying their eggs, by now they moved, because there are plastic pellets in them. So we need to now 100% have a team who can do this investigation. And that does not mean Sri Lankans, the moment you talk about something complicated, they look for a foreign team. The first thing they say is, the Sri Lankans are not capable, let's get another foreign group. And that means we are going to spend this billion within a few months. That's not the point. We need to have a proper strategy. We need to get the experts we need. And I'm so happy the Supreme Court, and this is something that I also requested in my plea. I said the Supreme Court must continue to be monitoring this work, because that's the only way we can be rest assured that our connections, that our name, international name, can be looked after. Because we do not want Sri Lanka to be known as a country where lethargy prevails. We are not lethargic people. We need to work exactly, precisely hard in order to get the best data, and we have the best judgment. When you have a best judgment to work with, then we need to also ensure that we work very well on, with the proper team, exact analysis. If we do not have the equipment, we need to purchase the equipment quickly. If we have the equipment, we need to upgrade them. We need to get the technicians, and that does not mean a recruitment. You need to get the people who are in Sri Lanka, within Sri Lanka, to get that work done. So it's a fantastic venture. For me, it's exciting. It's exciting because we want to develop our country. We need to become a hub where the marine science can really broaden. It's a beautiful science. Marine science is a beautiful science. Very few people study it. I was the professor for environmental science in Fiji Islands, and my students were studying marine science. They do all their work, they dive, and they take samples. They're constantly in the sea doing all the work. So basically, we need to upgrade our systems as well. And this is a good way for the universities to also be part and parcel of it. But important is we need to remember international standards. I do not want someone to look at the data that we present to them and say, they cannot accept it. So it's very important. Our standards must be well maintained. And that's what the Supreme Court is asking for. That's why they are saying on a monthly basis or on a regular basis, they need to submit their reports to Supreme Courts.
As a matter of fact, the Supreme Court has faulted MIPA, which ironically is the authority which is supposed to protect the marine environment. Exactly. And the chairperson has been faulted for not constituting the board and summoning the board of MIPA immediately, and its sub-boards, and providing proper guidance when this disaster happened. And that is exactly what MIPA is supposed to do.
Exactly.
It's not supposed to be plucking coconuts. It's supposed to be when such a disaster happens, and I'm sure this is not the last disaster. It's not the first. It won't be the last. We need to have an authority which knows what it's doing and will move fast, and we can have confidence in. But the Supreme Court has very clearly rapped MIPA over the knuckles and said they haven't done their job. So
and I think it comes to the fact that when you have a council, you have people of different subject areas. One could be an ecologist, one could be a lawyer, one could be an engineer, another one could be a social scientist. And then also, even within the sector of environment, there are people of different professions. And so, unless you have a whole team looking into this issue, you cannot come to the correct decision. MIPA chairman by herself cannot take decisions, because after all, she's a lawyer. So you cannot take decisions by yourself because you need that other knowledge. And that's why it was very, very important. And then also another thing, Sri Lankans have this, a certain attitude. They believe that if they bring their friends, things will be okay. I mean, it has nothing to do with their friendship. It's about the knowledge.
Friends and relatives.
Yeah, friends and relatives. I mean, so we need to make sure that we have a lot of universities today in Sri Lanka. We need to bring whoever's capable on board. I am very concerned about it, and that's why I'm so happy about the judgment, because the judgment is itself shows that they do want to monitor. They do not want this money which they themselves have asked for Sri Lanka to be misused. And that's why it's very, very important. We can learn a lesson this time with this particular judgment, that you bring the equipment, you bring the technical know-how, and you do the work properly, and you map it out, and you show it very well. We've done this work, and here is that data based on all these accuracies and inaccuracies. Honesty talks a lot. That's what we need.
Honesty and integrity and responsibility. We have much more to delve into in this particular judgment, but first we need to take a short commercial break. I am in conversation with Dr. Ajantha Perera, who is beaming from ear to ear because she is one of those who instituted this action. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
දත්ත වැඩියෙන් සයිබර් අවකාශය කළඹන වුවත් සලකුණ Newsfirst YouTube channelය අදම subscribe කරන්න. Newsfirst ජනතාව සමග.
Strengthening the people, fighting for the truth, leading a nation, forging the future. Newsfirst, with the people.
පැතිකඩ
සතියේ දිනවල උදෑසන 6ට
රේඩියෝවට වීඩියෝ ගුවන් විදුලි ප්‍රවෘත්ති කලාව නව මානයකට ප්‍රමුඛ පුවත් සිරස FM ඔස්සේ ආනවා වගේ.
Welcome back to Face to Face. I am with Dr. Ajantha Perera, the noted activist, and we are discussing the judgment with regard to the Express Pearl disaster. Now, just one more point, Dr. Ajantha, on what the Supreme Court has said about MIPA, the Marine Environment Protection Authority. The court has actually said a lot about MIPA, but just one excerpt. The chairperson of Marine Environment Protection Authority, MIPA, failed to convene the board of directors of MIPA when it was required to, and thereby failed to obtain the views of the members of such board specifically appointed to guide decision-making processes of MIPA, and failed to assess the effectiveness of the measures already taken in light of the worsening emergency. So basically, the authority was half asleep. That's what it means in layman's terms.
And the Marine Environmental Protection Authority is actually established under the Marine Environmental Protection Act.
Well,
and so it's already laid down exactly there within the act itself about the board, who should be in the board, and all these things are very well spelled out. So once you become the chairperson, the very first things you need to do is to establish those committees and boards that are so necessary for your advice, for you to be able to do the work properly. So it's a shame that that was not done properly. So
and also, Dr. Ajantha, Now, we know what marine disasters are. They are oil spills,
Yep.
they are chemical spills, plastic spills like this one.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot, you don't get 20 or 30 types of marine disasters. You just get a few. And these things have happened around the world. So you have all that knowledge. So we know that if there is, for example, an oil spill off Colombo, we know that we need massive resources. So we need to have access to those resources.
Exactly.
We need
Spot
to,
on.
we need to bring in everybody, whether it's the Navy, the universities, the Indian Coast Guard, everybody needs to be brought in immediately. So that needs to be the plan from day one.
The basic equipment. For example, if there is an oil spill, you need to have booms so that you contain the oil within a given area so it would not spread. Then the second thing is you need to have your detergents on board so that you can actually apply the detergents immediately.
And break up the oil.
Break up the oil. And then the next one is you have to have the skimmer. The skimmer will pull all the oil pieces up onto a container. And unless you have those equipment in place, you cannot run a port.
And we are a major port in the world.
Exactly.
And we are on one of the major shipping routes in Asia and the world. So this was bound to happen. We have had marine disasters before.
Exactly.
I mean, the coastline of Sri Lanka is littered with shipwrecks from 1,000 years ago.
Do you know we've had 3 disasters, oil spill disasters here in Sri Lanka before this one. And we have not got compensation. Because we have never worked to get a compensation. It has happened, the people have gone. And we have not requested for compensation. We have not reported. We have not actually filed cases against them. So I think why we wanted to take up this case, why I basically became a petitioner, was to say that the ocean belongs to us. The EEZ zone that we have all around Sri Lanka, which is actually our inheritance.
The exclusive economic zone.
Exactly.
EEZ.
And all those resources that we have is ours. So we need to protect it. And if somebody brings a ship that has a nitric acid leaking container and bound to, catch fire, and I mean, how can they come inside?
And the judgment very clearly says that the operators and the master of the ship misled the harbor authorities in Sri Lanka.
Exactly. And I'm very happy about the judgment because now they have cleared all these other things that people were talking about. And so it also unites the people from within inside Sri Lanka. I think the last part of the judgment actually is thanking all the petitioners. Actually, we worked together and the councils of the petitioners. For example, for me, it was Mr. Krishmal Varnasurya, and also there was Dimuthi and Dinali, and there was a lot of, and they worked very closely with also the others, because the most important thing for all of us who were sitting in the Supreme Court room, for many days in front of the judges, our heart's desire was that we will do justice for our own resources, because the Constitution says very clearly the government is responsible for protecting the natural resources of this country. And the natural resources includes not only the ocean, the elephants, the monkeys, and the trees, the forest cover, everything. So, it's very important that we fight to protect it. Because once we understand what Sri Lanka is not only the human beings who live in Sri Lanka. We always get it wrong. We always look after the people. but we don't look after the natural resources. We cut down the forests. We allow the elephants to be killed. But our duty is to take care of the humans as well as the animals, as well as the forest cover, because that's the beauty of it. And I think in the Supreme Court room, there were many a days when I felt we were all working together hard in order to get this done. And that's something that I like, something like Aragale. During the Aragale time, I remember that we were all very happy because we didn't have our own agendas. We didn't want to be seen prominent, but we wanted to work in a team. And that team spirit is something we need to build in Sri Lanka, and that's totally lacking. So this gave us opportunities to work as teams.
I would call it patriotism, which Sri Lanka has lacked for many decades, but seems to be making a resurgence now, thankfully. And to look at some more points in this judgment, now the court has taken control of the process from now on. So the case, although the initial compensation has been ordered, the case is not over. As long as more work needs to be done on this disaster, to mitigate it, to study it, then the court will be in charge of this. And the court has established the MV Express Pearl Compensation Commission. So that's very important. That's established by the Supreme Court itself. And the court has also appointed a retired Justice of the Supreme Court, EAGR Amarasekara, as the chairman of this commission. So the court has gone very far indeed, not leaving it to the AG and MIPA and all these other organizations which have been found wanting. And the court has also established the MV Express Pearl Marine and Coastal Environment Restoration and Protection Committee. So that's going to be on the ground and in charge of restoration.
Actually, I'm very happy about that. That was one of our proposals in our petition, that we wanted to have a compensation fund and also a committee, and for the Supreme Court to be in charge. So when it was read, we were really happy because it's like, it's endorsing also, our thinking, and it gives you a lot of courage. When the Supreme Court judgment comes and is in line with what you have been saying also, it gives you a tremendous amount of pride and encouragement. And I really want to thank the bench for that, because, they don't consider us as small people. They consider us as important people. And when we become petitioners and we are working hard, they recognize our hearts. They recognize what we are trying to achieve. And I really thank them for that.
Well, I think the Supreme Court has always stood up for what is right in this country, despite all the pressures that they have come under. But we as journalists certainly have had absolute faith in the Supreme Court. And to get back to the judgment, the committee, the court has actually appointed the Secretary of the Ministry of Environment as the chairman of this committee as well. So the court has gone very far into all this, and the committee and the commission have to report from time to time to the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
And those dates are also set out.
And this compensation, the reason for this commission is this. You see, now as time goes on, we know we are going to get more compensation. And the purpose of the commission is also to see how well the reporting is going on. So once the reporting comes, they can go back and talk to those people and say, look, the environment is more destroyed than we thought. The effects are lasting much longer. And therefore, we need to get more compensation. It's not that we are really going and begging, but it's our environment that is being destroyed. We need to restore it. Restoration is the key word in the whole thing. Because, you see, once the natural environment is disturbed, it's very difficult for you to bring it back to where it was again. It's not like mending a shirt or a blouse. It's something, once it's gone forever. And it takes a long time. Now, a coral reef. A coral takes, for 3 inches of a coral to grow, it takes 1 whole year. I remember the first time when this disaster happened, that's what I was screaming about. When the corals are destroyed, we can't get them back. It takes thousands of years for us to have a beautiful coral reef. And so, what they need to do now is, because it's natural resources which are destroyed, which belong to us. And so this compensation council or the commission will look into what the reports are coming, look into what more we need to do. And they will be the ones who will deal with the outside world. And I think that's good, because the expert teams would not have the capability to do that. They are doing research. They are doing the restoration work. They are looking for the best people. They are doing the investigations. But the commission has a diplomacy in order to reach the international community and ask for compensation. So it works.
Right. And I think an important legal principle has been set by the Supreme Court, in that what it said in this judgment is that with this compensation of $1 billion being termed an initial compensation, it has recognized that environmental damage is a continuous long-term process.
Exactly.
So you can't, as soon as there's an oil spill, you can't say, okay, that's worth $1 million and ask for that much. No, it is, even 5 years, 10 years from now, the damage may continue.
Exactly.
And the restoration also takes a very, very long time. So all that is
corals,
a cost.
You have to go and implant very small corals, right, into the seabed. I mean, it's a beautiful process. I've seen this being done in Fiji Islands. They actually grow them to about this size, and they go and implant them in the seabed, and then they begin to grow. And it takes years. It takes years and years and years and years. And imagine those animals which depended on that coral reef. By that time, they would have gone. I mean, I went to Maldives recently, and we went diving. We went just to look at it's called swimming with the turtles. So you can look at the turtles and you're swimming there, and then you see all the corals there, right? And that environment is so full. Just imagine some disaster happens and everything gets destroyed. I mean, imagine, how do you get it back again? How does the restoration take? It takes years. Our children and our children's children will be doing this work.
Now, Dr. Ajantha, I'm not an expert on environmental law, of course, but it strikes me that this particular judgment is vastly different from many of the foreign judgments I have seen. For example, the Exxon Valdez disaster in Alaska, which was about 30-40 years ago, the Exxon oil company ended up paying compensation, but it was widely accepted that this compensation was not enough, because it was a one-time payment. So a decade after that, when the effects of the disaster were still being felt, there was no way for more compensation to be ordered. But in this case, the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka has been very specific. So this is an ongoing process. Even perhaps 5 years from now, if it is found that, well, there's a particular damage which has been caused, which we didn't see back in 2025, then this particular shipping company has to pay for it.
And just imagine, with all that capability what we have in Sri Lanka, and Attorney General took this whole thing to Singapore. And I think this is where we are now trying to correct ourselves. Don't always have to depend on foreign countries. I mean, we need to have good connections with them. We need to appreciate what they're doing. We need to work together. But every time we have a problem, we don't have to run to another country and say, help. I mean, that's not what we are here for. And so what the Supreme Court is now training Sri Lankans to do is to think internally.
To have some faith in our own country and
Precisely.
our own
That's
institutions.
what they're doing. They're bringing back what went to Singapore back to Sri Lanka. And this is why it's very important that we work well. We all have our differences, but that does not mean that we should forever, we should say, I am only selecting my relatives and my friends. That selecting relatives and friends must go out of our vocabulary forever.
Now, a few other points from the judgment. The director of the CID has been ordered by the Supreme Court to commence investigations immediately and to complete such investigations within 3 months and to report back to the Supreme Court.
Fantastic.
So this is fabulous. It's not report back to the AG or the IGP. Certainly they can be reported back to, but report back to the Supreme Court in 3 months' time as to what criminal proceedings can be filed in this case.
Exactly, and now even the money that is supposed to be in UK, I mean, within 3 months, they could say whether we could have it returned to us. So, I mean, we don't need to go on talking about this. Then it becomes gossip. We don't need gossip. We want facts and figures and finish off the job. And that's what they are saying. And I saw throughout here, it's saying 3 months. Only 3 months are being given. And I like another thing is that on the 25th of September, there's a meeting again. And that is to strategize and to fix the implementation plan. So they want to know who the experts are, who are going to be there, who's going to be in the commissions, and all that knowledge has to come together on the 25th of September. So they finalize the teams.
Absolutely. And yes, so we have the CID, we have the Bribery Commission, all of them now have to get going and to see which laws have been contravened.
Exactly.
Because it's important to point out that today's judgment was on the fundamental rights actions filed against the state entities and against the owners and operators of this vessel. So we have several types of offences in Sri Lanka. This is fundamental rights. Then you have criminal offences,
exactly.
which it could be perhaps if this disaster were intentional, that would be criminal.
Exactly.
Or if information was withheld from the authorities, which the judgment has in fact referred to, then that may be a criminal act itself. So those are, criminal acts which may result in jail terms. And then, of course, you also have civil compensation where people can sue these guys on the strength of this. So there's a lot which may happen in the future, but this is certainly more than the foundation. This
Exactly.
is the pillar on which all this can happen.
If you really look at it now, we have this huge issue with deforestation. And everyone is talking about, how much of land is being cleared now, and the elephants are coming out, and there is the human-elephant conflict. We have elephants being killed by the trains. We are having elephants being shot dead. And so what I believe is, if the Supreme Court has now taken this sort of a judgment, if the courts begin to give judgments of this nature, people would be streamlined to think in a particular way and to get the things corrected. Because human elephant conflict, we are talking about it for a long time, and the animals are dying, humans are suffering on the other side. But instead of that, if we can have a timeline, if we can give them correct decisions, and if the Supreme Court is monitoring, things will get done, because people would ensure that they will stick to the timeline. And also, now if we say there are 7 elephant corridors, they need to be cleared. Supreme Court judgment comes and says clear 7 elephant corridors so that the elephants can move in a proper way, and the railway line should be cleared in those areas. It will happen.
Well, may I put it to you, Dr. Ajantha, that there are 2 types of elephant conflicts. One is the human-elephant conflict, where it's tragic for the humans and for the elephants. The other one, if I may describe it thus, it's the railway department versus elephant conflict, and the railway department doesn't seem to have done much at all over the decades to try to minimize this, and a lot of talk, but nothing much seems to happen.
I know.
More elephants get run over every month, and we know which stretches of railway line. It's not exactly down the southern coastline, is it? It's exactly in those Batticaloa, Colombo and Anuradhapura areas. Those are the areas. So unfortunately, the Railways Department hasn't done anything. Perhaps that should be the next piece of litigation for the Supreme Court to look at environmentally.
And the same driver who killed the 9 elephants is also the culprit of the recent one. So our argument is, if you find a particular driver has some issue, in the sense it could be the eyesight, it could be concentration, it could be that he falls asleep in the night while he's driving. So it could be many reasons. So why do you employ the same person for the same segment? And this is the question that we ask.
This is a danger to the passengers.
Precisely.
It's a danger to the people on the road.
Exactly.
So, if this were a bus driver or a 3-wheeler driver, the police would be taking some action.
Exactly.
But when it comes to a train,
who can take action? Only the elephants,
But then it's up to the transport minister to look into these matters.
Exactly.
That's what he's paid for, by us, of course. So definitely, we hope there'll be more action, and we hope that the Supreme Court doesn't need to go into each and every single thing like this. I mean, when you really read this judgment, Dr. Ajantha, I get a sense that the Supreme Court seemed a little exasperated that it needs to spell out all these things one by one, and sort of wrap all these individuals and institutions on the knuckles with a cane for not doing their basic job.
Exactly. And I'm very happy about it, because at least now we have a historic judgment, a judgment that is set to change the way we think, the way we decide, the way we plan, the way we implement. Sri Lankans have always had disasters in implementation. We have the law, we have the legal mechanism, but we never ever implement it. But here is an opportunity to implement it and to understand that teamwork can bring changes. And I am so grateful to the Supreme Court for that, because we have been so desperate, especially in the area of environment, where we talk about elephants, where we talk about trees, where we talk about birds, and we talk about marine environment. And people always say to me, I mean, for me, even I hear that people say to me, why are you not so concerned about human beings?
Because but you are. You were standing every Thursday
exactly.
at Liberty Roundabout with about 1,000 riot policemen watching you.
Around me.
And you did that for, oh my
Precisely.
goodness, a couple of years, I believe. Yes. So that's why I said I described you as an activist, because you're not only an environmental activist, you are an activist for human rights and basically for everything. So I'm afraid on that note, Dr. Ajantha, we are out of time. My thanks to Dr. Ajantha Perera, the noted activist, and thank you to you at home for watching. I hope most of you have a smile on your face with this judgment coming out. And don't go away, because the news is coming up right now. So have a great evening.